Thank you. Thank you, Mary Jean. Welcome, everyone. It's very exciting to see new faces and familiar faces and to hear a little bit about the weather in your part of the world. It's 25 degrees for someone somewhere. So it's fantastic to hear that too. We're very excited to welcome you tonight. And we'd like to always begin with a land acknowledgement. It's very grounding and a kind of a deeply moral task. Those of us living in the territory of Canada have coming to understand how important it is that we acknowledge the land that we live on and express our gratitude for the first peoples who have stewarded this land for centuries. So as I describe where I'm from, I invite you, if you know where you are living, what the traditional earth keepers are in your neck of the woods, to enter those into the chat stream. So I am living on the Haldimand Tract. This is land that was promised to the Six Nations of the Grand River, and it's the traditional homelands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral peoples. And I'm so grateful to be living in this neck of the woods. We are in the Great Lakes region, and that's we're sort of our grounded place that we offer this this session from. And this is our second year of spiritual life writing work. Life writing, if for those of you who are familiar with it, is a wonderfully integrative genre that unites memory and experience. Spiritual life writing invites the whole self in. Memory and experience, fact, feeling, and imagination, the profane and the sacred. And we offer these sessions to help you find your authentic voice and to shed whatever fears make you hold your tongue. This year, in 2022, we will bring you diverse voices, guides, and formats, beginning with tonight. And I will introduce my special guest in just a moment, but we ask that insofar as you are willing and able, that you turn on or keep on your videos so that our guest can engage, especially when we get to the reading a bit from our writing, if we have enough time for that. So I am thrilled to introduce my guest, Ingrid Rose. Ingrid found us, so this is an especially wonderful part of the story. She has been teaching adults creative process in life and in writing for nearly 50 years. Ingrid writes lyric prose, creative nonfiction, and memoir. She is a longtime continuum movement practitioner, and she developed writing from the body, which she's going to work with us to give us a taste of that tonight, after working with Emily Conrad and Rebecca Mark. You can learn more from her website, Moving Into Words. And you will find that at the end of we'll have a little PowerPoint later on, and information about how to contact Ingrid and the resources that she's giving us will be posted right on the screen. So any of you who are following after this has been recorded and posted on the Awakening Spirituality website, will be able to find all the resources you need. So Ingrid, how are you? Where are you? Can you highlight Ingrid for me so we can chat? There you are. Now, can you unmute? No. You will be able to momentarily.
Yes. Thank
you. We've done this for security reasons. We've had a few adventures, real adventures. So generally speaking, Mary Jean and Tina are the guardians of who can speak when, if and when. But anyway, Ingrid, I'm so happy that you're joining us and that you basically came to me and said, oh, I'd love to do writing from the body. So we're very grateful to you for that, for your initiative and your aplomb and the fantastic work that you do. You've been giving back to the writing community for a long, long time. So it's a real honor to have you here.
Thank you, Susan. That's really lovely. So if it's okay, I'd like to also do a land acknowledgement and also an ancestral acknowledgement. So the ancestral part is that my ancestors are Ashkenazi Jews who fled to England in the 1880s from the pogroms in Russia and Poland. Since 1996, I have lived, worked, and played here on the traditional and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, people of the Rivergrass, the Squamish, people of the Sacred Water, and the Tsleil-Waututh, people of the Inlet. So no wonder, with so much water and flowing vegetation surrounding me, I feel really at home in Vancouver.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that was a mouthful.
Well, yeah, well, you're speaking to a Great Lakes girl, so it's water to water. Water to
Yes,
water.
so I grew up on an island. I'm from London originally, many, many years ago. You wouldn't know from my accent, but I come from England.
You come from England. Okay, so I know you have something really special for us tonight, but I want to just start with having everyone understand a bit of your story, because part of what we're doing, of course, is you're introducing us to work that's grounded in Emily Conrad's continuum movement. But we'll get to that. But first, I just want to hear Ingrid, because you have an amazing backstory. So are you willing to share some of it? I'd love to hear some of it.
Oh gosh, Susan, which one are you thinking of? Yes, it's odd. You get to 71 and you realize there are an awful lot of stories.
There are a lot of backstories. Choose the thread. Exactly. Well, I think the fact that you did at one point in time live in a spiritual community, I think people would find that of great interest. And so hearing a bit about that, and then how you found your way into the work that you're doing now with writing from the body. So
great. Thank you. That was a good prompt. So it's interesting. I think what I'll start with, and I do want to make it brief, but also give everybody maybe places in which they can connect and contact with that story. But my primary interest is for you all to experience, which is something that I think is fair to say is an altered state, but done naturally through breath. And any of you who practice yoga or do any kind of work similar, chanting or anything like that, will know that it definitely changes the brainwaves. And so really the purpose of this is to divest of all our stories in a sense, anything that is there that is kind of disguising our spirit. I love that you were saying, awakening spirituality. It's wanting to help people find their voices. And I think for me, spiritual is such a complex word and so misunderstood. And I think it's to do with authenticity. And I don't know any writer that doesn't want to have their authentic voice out there. So what I would start with is I have a manuscript that I've been working on for many years. So I don't have a book published. I'm published in anthologies and there are other places, but I've been working on a memoir for a long time. And it's been in different forms. It's been a play, it's been a lyric prose piece. And it's with a publisher at the moment, and it's called The Walk. And always I thought the story behind this, the story that was motivating it, was to explain to people who had no sense of spirituality. I mean, it didn't speak to them. And those were the kinds of people I grew up without a sense of spirituality. We were atheist Jews. My father was a communist. And that dimension didn't exist. So I felt that when I met this spiritual community that I became a part of, I did a 180 degrees turn. And at the time, there was a woman, Marilyn, you'll remember the name, some of you will recognize it. She wrote a book called The Conspiracy. Does it ring a bell? And of course, I've lost the title, but it was to do with conspiring together. She was a journalist and also a journalist of science. Mm-hmm. And she explored spirituality as a journalist and got completely taken in by it. And she said, the first thing that will happen to you is you will lose all your friends. and that's true. That in one sense, that is true. You become unrecognizable. So in my memoir, which is called The Walk, I am walking in the North Shore Mountains, very near. I can actually see them from here, with my brother. I happen to have a twin brother. That's my only sibling. And he is not spiritual. I love him dearly. He loves me. And there are just things we don't talk about. And so I use this structure to both talk about my experience in the spiritual community and also what's going on. It's a mixture of dialogue and exploring, of course, our shared family. And a very big part of that was depression. My father was bipolar. And both Tim and I, my brother and I, suffered from depression. So a lot of the work that I have done is both spiritual, but I don't know, I think I brought this term up with you, Susan, spiritual bypassing, which I don't think I was familiar with, but I was part of a spiritual organization. And I think it was very typical of the time. This is the 70s. There were many of these groups that popped up. It had been going for somewhat like 50 years. It was not a big organization. And I think the general feel at the time was, I mean, the example given to us by various speakers was, you know, the more clear water, if you understand that the clear water of truth, if you pour it into the murky waters of consciousness, keep on pouring clear water, it'll clear it. Well, that's very cerebral. And possibly for some people it works like that. But we got ourselves into a situation when I was living in the spiritual community in France, where there was a lot of personal work that we needed to do. Right. And one of the things that we did, and this leads right into Continuum, and I hope I only talk for another minute. It led us to do holotropic breathing. Okay. And I'm not going to go in, but it's breath work. And the Groffs who had been using it, they were North American professors, and it was before Reagan made drugs, certain kinds of drugs, illegal. They were using psychedelic drugs, and they were acid and all kinds of things under the university's auspices. And they were doing these experiments. When that was no longer possible, he said, well, let's see what people have done for a very long time to alter their consciousness. And of course, breath. When I left France and ended up living here in Canada, in Vancouver, I met somebody who I had spoken with, a woman, and I said to her, I was looking for some kind of movement. It was maybe dance, but I didn't want to, it wasn't dance steps. And she said to me, continuum movement. That's what you need. So that's the back story. Okay, so let me say one thing. I love this notion that if you start exploring spirituality, you lose all your friends. That's fantastic, because of course it speaks to that fear that we have that somehow the closer we get to our authentic selves, the less recognizable we will be in the outside world, right? Because something will start to fall away. The familiar trappings that we've motored through life with start to not to work anymore and start to move and change and shift. And so of course we become someone, the closer we get to who we feel is our true selves, the great fear being no one will recognize us when we get there. So I love that premise. I'm all in. Let me know as soon as the publisher says yes,
and then and we'll schedule you for a reading. That's fantastic. But I think that's a really interesting prospect. That's so interesting. So that search for authenticity, of course, leads you to continuum movement, and you end up developing writing from the body. So let's focus on writing from the body, less so on continuum movement, if you can.
Oh, yes, I can.
Okay. I'm giving you permission to do that. So,
but we did ask, and it may not have been possible. I know how busy everybody is, but certainly, if at the end of this session you think there is something there for you, then you will be interested to know more. And I think
that's interesting.
One can talk a lot about an experience, but the point about an experience is to have it. Mm-hmm. So what I would like to do is actually, without more ado, I don't really want to describe it, but I would be grateful, Susan, if you put up the first slide, and that will just help me give does that work for you?
Absolutely. Can you see that?
So we see writing from the body?
Yes.
Yes.
There we go.
That's it. So Emily Conrad, an American Jew, she died about 5 years ago. She was not quite 80. And she'd been in Haiti as she was leading a dance troupe when she was quite young. She saw that the Haitians did not move. They were moved by the energy of the earth. And because they were so receptive, the energy came up through their bodies, and so they moved. And so this is about receptivity, and this is what we are going to do. So Emily would say, you are not a body, you are movement. So maybe we could have the second slide. There are more than 70 trillion cells in the body. 60% of the human adult body is water. So continuum movement uses sound and breath. You can't do sound without breath, but sound is vibration. And I'm sure all of you know, water is a brilliant medium for sound. And it's hard, I think, if this is new to you, but for some of you, it will not be. We think of our bodies as solid. We say, well, look, our skeleton, it's hard and everything. It's all made of the same stuff. It's all water. Matter is tiny. It's a tiny, and as some people would describe, and I'm not a scientist, matter is simply a more dense vibration of vibration, and we create vibrations in our body, which actually affects the natures of our bodies. So this is not just to write. This actually wasn't about writing, it was about creativity, but it was a healing practice. Can we look at the next slide? So when we look at that, I think often we think of the earth, and we think of that marvelous picture that we all came to recognize as our green planet. That is us. There is no way that we exist outside of the earth. Often we think of it and we say our feet are on the earth and ground ourselves into the earth. I will do this when I'm leading a practice, but the earth is all around us. There isn't any way you can get out of it. 71% of the earth's surface is made up of water. We are the same. We are made up of the earth. Can we have the next slide? Emily said, this creature is the hope of the future. It has the most possibility. Its only hard part is its beak. It also has 4 hearts. This is only something I learned recently. Amazing. The octopus has a body, but one that is protean. All possibility. It lives outside the usual body-brain divide. This is where I'm going to take you with Continuum. Wow. So I would just like to outline, and Susan, do ask something if you think we need to clarify. Okay. The dive will be 20 minutes. Usually we lie down for this. This is the least resistance to gravity. And certainly you may do that. You know, if you are comfortable doing that and you can still hear me, you can have you're muted, you can have your video off if you've been showing your face. I will have my video off when I'm talking you through this dive. I will be teaching you the sounds. They're not complicated. You can also sit up and do this.
Okay, do you want me to time it, Ingrid, or you know?
Actually, I will time it.
Okay.
So I know, and what I just want to say is, before you go and lie down, or you know, will you have your writing tools close by? Because what I'll do is, once I've left you a little space, I will drop a poem into your waters. And by this time, I'm trusting that you're going to be much more buoyant. And this poem is simply a prompt. This is not a test of your understanding of the poem or an analysis. It's simply something that's a springboard for you. When I finished it, I will say, I'm now going to give us 5 minutes, whatever you need to write. And I'm trusting, if we've got enough time, that some of us might be able to share what they wrote. And I want to say, I know a lot of you do know about writing, and I don't know, I think it could have been Annie Dillard, but I mean, she always said, until you've written shit, you will never write well. So shit is highly acceptable.
I love that. I think we're all set. I think we're all set, Ingrid. You've brought us right to we're putty in your hands now. So whatever you need. Beautiful.
Okay, so I'm going to give you just a moment to set yourself up so that you feel comfortable. If you lie on the floor, have all the support you need. You mustn't get cold doing this, because what we're trying to do is turn your body to water. You know, we want you to be a puddle, either on your chair or on the floor. You have the capacity to do that. It's a completely inbuilt, innate capacity. And it's simply receptivity and allowing your body to do what your body needs to do. So anybody who's suffering from pain or anything, this pain always takes up a lot of our attention. So there will be that invitation to respond to sensation, and then always ask, and what else? There's never just pain. You know, there's an itch behind my knee, or there's, you know, you can always discover other sensations. So I just give you a moment. And however you're comfortable, whether you prefer to have your eyes with a soft gaze, closing your eyes is perfect. So Emily was quite a scientist. So I'm just going to assume that you're taking care of yourself and that you are warm and comfortable, and that all the parts of your body that need to be supported are supported, so you don't have to use muscle to keep yourself upright. So some of you probably are scientists, and Emily always talked about starting with a baseline, and that is being aware of how your body feels now. So that after we've done this process, at the end of the process, we come back to the baseline and we can ask, has anything changed? So however you bring your attention into your interior space, and I'll do this with a series of questions, which are simply like signposts. You don't really answer them. It just says, why don't you look there? So the first question, where do you notice your breath? What is the quality of your breath? Does it have dimension? Is it smooth? Short? Long? Shallow? Deep? So if you're sitting, I'd invite you to bring your attention to your sits bones. And if you're lying, to notice all the points of your body's surface in contact with the floor under you. And those of us sitting can do the same, whether it's under the chair under our thighs, at our backs, the ground under our feet, and of course the air that is all around us, inside us and outside us. What do you notice inside your body? What sensation is calling your attention? It could be a pleasant one. It could be one that's uncomfortable. Allow yourself just to scan your body, checking in unusual places where you don't usually look, between your toes, in your armpits, your shoulder blades. We are sea creatures. We are essentially water. So with that thought, allow that quality of water, that image of the octopus who moves like kelp in water. As you breathe in and out, you can just allow your body to imagine that kind of fluidity. Don't need to make it move. Just with your breath, allowing it, giving it permission to be non-linear. It doesn't have to support itself. The earth is supporting you. We are held by the mother. We are part of the mother. I want you to feel where the back of your head either touches the back of your chair, or perhaps you feel the air on it, or the ground if you're lying down. And just lightly turning your head, but minute turning of the head, swiveling, but tiny, tiny millimeters, just to left and right. Feeling the remarkable design of the body. This doesn't take effort. And you may notice those orbs that are in pools of water in your skull, your eyeballs, that are relaxing in those pools, floating in those pools. They move as you move your head to the left, your eyes move to the right. Just let them move where they will. And now I want you to really relax your face. Imagine that it's beginning to melt. So you know water has the power to be both ice, solid, and flowing. Allow your skin of your face, the bones of your face, your cheekbones, your eyebrows, feel them melting. That jaw, the hinge of your jaw, allow that to open, just fall open. Even your tongue might hang out. Feeling your neck relax, your ears slip down, your lobes touch the ground. And just continue to do this down through your body, going down your neck, through your arms, through your upper body, through the chest, taking with it, softening your organs, your vertebra, the gut body, 2 holes at the ends, one the mouth, the other end the anus. This is where it all began. Our limbs came much later. This is where movement begins. It begins in the spine. Just allow your body. And the first sound that we're going to drop into our waters is an O sound. It doesn't have to be loud. You're not projecting it outward. You're projecting it inside your body. I will be making it a bit louder so you can hear it. And I trust that you'll do it with me. And we'll do 3 or 4 of these O sounds. And it sounds like this. So your mouth goes into an O shape. O. And if you're ready to let the sound go, you allow yourself just to go into open attention. So this is just opening yourself, allowing whatever sensation, movement, even thoughts will come and go, and you always can say, and what else? So don't follow the thought, but by all means follow movement. And movement may be a microscopic flicker that you feel in your left toe. And you may just inquire, where did that go? How far can I feel the echo of that flicker? And if some of you find that your body is wanting to move, whatever your body is directing you to do, there isn't a right way to do continuum. There isn't a right way to make the sounds. Gradually, with practice, the sounds begin to fall into place for you. Some people have the capacity to make long sounds. Some do it short. The lower notes are more effective because high notes innovate. Low notes calm. But no lower than is comfortable for you. And I'm going to add another sound, and we refer to it as the jocks and socks, and it is the zzz, so like a soft J, zzz, and then the hiss of an S, which can almost go into a sh. And you can allow them to merge and change shape. And if they just want to, if they start to play with you, whatever gives you pleasure. The body is a place of pleasure. There is pain too, but pleasure, it is the true meaning of eros. This is what moves us. Desire moves us, whether it is hunger or thirst or curiosity. That is one of the mottos of continuum. Always be curious. And what else? Going to ask you to do one more of the sound into your body and then go into open attention. And while you're in open attention, just noticing what you notice. I'm going to drop this poem into your waters. It's called Self-Lit. You're humming through the streets, self-lit. I have to correct strangers who touch your head without asking, as if to bless you. or take a blessing from you. When we leave the city, you become a boy hunting locusts. Nature stuns you. You load up your pockets and want to bring it home with us, but nature says with nature, I say, a refrain learned from another mother. You cannot be unpuzzled by things, but you marshal all your sweet bravado for me, who tries but never beats you in a game of chess. I witness the rook and queen moving inside your thinking, squaring and hewing to pathways of wins, losses. Childhood's end is always menacing. Apparent places of stars mark its outer limits. It heaves up in you when you lose, when you rage, when you're afraid. Glowering out of a fevered dream, your eyes shine as you confess in the dark, I was the monster. You show me a hornet's nest on a bed of cotton, hold it up as an offering. I wonder with you at what you hold. Summer rivers that show bracken corners, agate marbles, dagger winds of our days in the city built of strangers, in a country built of sky. When I pull you close, what will flee trembles in you. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to write. That just leaves us 5 minutes to share at the end. So we will see, maybe. So I'm starting the timer. So I'm going to invite you to just write your last word and for everybody to come back. So I don't know if it would be possible, only if you're comfortable doing this, but it would be lovely to see you, if that's reasonable. And Susan, maybe you want to.
Everyone's being very generous, actually, turning cameras on. So if